Hey, wife. Coach T here with you. Listen, I like bothering y'all on my administrative days. It gives me a reason to take a break, right? It gives me a reason to take a break. And sometimes when I'm having administrative days, it's like certain things I feel like the Lord, the download in me, it's like I need to share that. They need to know this. And one of the things I have noticed is when service providers or coaches, they get new followers. It's like they really don't know about the curriculum, and they really don't know about, that coach, or they really don't know, much about them. And so they're trying to go through certain videos. They're trying to, figure out this coach. They're trying to figure out, this person. So I think every now and then it's a good idea for coaches to kind of talk about, how did we get here? Talk about, our curriculum. Talk about, some of the things that, I just talk about on my platform. And a lot of questions I get is, how did you come up with the name with the hashtag his wife? Like, how did you come up with that name, hashtag his wife? And what does that mean? Or when people hear, I put a lot of things on my Instagram, story about buoyancy, bounce back. And so I think, every now and then it's important for, people to just know and kind of have a, understanding of your background and where all this stuff kind of come from. So a lot of times I think people get, my business name mixed up with my curriculum. My business name and my curriculum are two separate things. My business is Buoyancy. Buoyancy Premarital and Marital Life Coaching LLC. That's my business name. Buoyancy actually came from my mentor, Darius Daniels. He had did a video. He had did a video a few years ago. And he talked about buoyancy, and he kind of explained it from a different perspective. Now, when you see the word buoyancy, that's kind of a term that's used, on the beach, on the shore, that type of thing. But when he explained it, it was like, oh, it's like something in me, it just stood out. And so that's where the name buoyancy actually came from. It came from me following my mentor online and listening to one of his messages, and the message gravitated to my spirit. It gravitated to what I had been through as a wife. It gravitated to what I had already been teaching wives and coaching others with. And so that's where buoyancy comes from. So buoyancy is the name of my actual business. Buoyancy in my coaching business, one of the things I try to help wives do, couples do, even the ones that I'm married, I try to help them, especially for the ones that I'm married before you actually marry, my premarital couples. I'm trying to help you, bounce back. I'm trying to help you, stand back up. I'm trying to help you to, recover from, whatever you may have endured or whatever you may have, dealt with just in life. My coaching is available to help you, bounce back, and not just bounce back like, okay, we bounce back, but I'm trying to teach you some I teach you practical, but biblical and practical principles to help you do that. So buoyancy is the name of my business. Buoyancy is the name of my business. So then when we come to his wife, his wife is it's almost like my stamp or my mark, in a sense. It is like the stamp of my business. God gave me that name when I was putting together my curriculum. And even when in the beginning of my stand, when I was walking and going through things, a scripture that he always pointed me to was 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 16a. And that was kind of like my standing verse. It just basically said, how do you know, wife? How do you know that you won't be the one who can save your husband? You know, how do you know that it won't be you that can save your husband? And when I started to really study that, it's not saying, okay, you save your husband because you're not Christ, but it's saying, how do you know, wife, that your behavior, how do you know, wife, that your attitude, how do you know, wife, that, you know, the way you present yourself, the way you show up in your marriage, how do you know it won't be some of those things that can literally change your husband or change his perspective, you know, on his own journey? If we go to, you know, First Peter, where it talks about that, how Sarah, you know, how she, you know, call her husband Abraham Lord, you know, how she, you know, had that quiet and submissive spirit, you know, towards Abraham. And so that's kind of like what I had kind of like held on to. And that's kind of like how my curriculum was developed. It was developed based off of the Lord placing in me. It's going to be your behavior, your attitude, the way you show up, the way you take care of yourself, the way you present yourself. These are the things that are going to shape and change the man in your life. And so his wife is like my stamp. It's like, you know, this is my stamp for how I coach. And, you know, when we go into the curriculum, which is Her Buoyancy Boost, it is his wife, Her Buoyancy Boost curriculum type of thing. But his wife is my stamp. And I use it metaphorically, because it's not necessarily saying you, wife, as his wife, but I use it metaphorically as you, wife, as the bride of Christ. All right. You being a representation of Christ. That is what make you his wife. It's not necessarily like your husband, you are your husband's wife. Yes, you are. But when I am coaching wise, I'm coaching wise from on the perspective of you being a representation, or you being a representative of Christ. All right. And so the definition, I always like to share this with wise, and actually I put it in my curriculum to share with wise, and it says she is favored and chosen by God. This is what his wife is. She is favored and chosen by God. Her assignment is to model Christ and to help her wayward husband return and or receive salvation. Okay. She has been given divine orders to carry her marital cross and to love her husband unconditionally. Like I said, it comes from out of 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 16a. Later in the years, as I had been studying that, I then developed and picked up not only 1 Corinthians 17, 16a, but I also add 1 Corinthians 7, 17 as well, which basically said, whatever it is, wherever God has placed you, whatever place that you are on your journey, that is your assignment. And whatever that assignment is, you ought to represent Christ. So whatever the situation is, whatever part of life that God has called you to, if you are in this marriage and this marriage is not the, you know, the greatest marriage, God is saying, whatever I have called you to, I have called you to be my representation. I have called you to be my you know, to represent me. And so that is where the history of his wife, you know, comes from. So when you see me putting on there hashtag his wife, I'll put that on all my, you know, whatever I try to, you know, if I write something out, I always try to include somewhere on there, hashtag his wife, because it's simply just saying you are not necessarily just your husband's wife, but you are the bride of Christ. You are to represent Christ in whatever situation that you are in. And so I just like to sometimes share that. One of the reasons also why I coach, my area of coaching, my expertise is in the area of behavior health, because I feel like if you are not representing Christ, or you don't have those, or you're not practicing or exercising the character traits of Christ, there is no way that you are going to be able to be what you need to be in that unhealthy marriage. Most of the wives that I coach are married to husbands who are unrepentant, husbands who are living a very toxic life, husbands who are addicted to addictions, husbands who, you know, have abandoned their families, adultery has taken place, husbands who have been mentally and emotionally abusive, you know, to their wives. But yet and still, these wives are feeling a tug from the Lord. They're feeling a pulling from the Lord to, stay in this marriage. And a lot of wives have questions about that. It's like, why, God, would you tell me to stay in this marriage that is very unhealthy? Why, God, would you tell me to, be a part of a marriage like this that it really does not, it really is dead. It really has no substance. It really has no meaning. This man is doing all these things. Why, God, would you, ask me to do something like this? And the Bible even tells us, these are amid all those things, give us reasons to exit out of the marriage. So why would God even tell me to do that? And I always try to explain to wives, which can be very hard sometimes, because it's very hard to accept this, this type of assignment. And I always say, usually, all right, I'm just saying, usually, when the Lord has petitioned a wife to stay in a unhealthy marriage, or stay married to an unrepentant husband, or to not divorce this type of husband, there is a divine call on that wife's life. There is a divine call on that wife and on that wife's life. There is a specific purpose plan that God wants to use for that marital covenant. God is using that marriage, and he will use that marriage to glorify him in ways that that wife would not have ever dreamed. That wife could not even dare imagine what God wants to do. When the Lord, and I spoke about this recently, when the Lord allows, when the Lord come knocking at your door and he bring, he allow the enemy to come in with him. He's allowing the enemy to come in with him because he already knows, I am choosing this specific family. I am choosing this specific marriage. I am choosing this husband and wife for you to have your way with them. Let's go back to the story of Job. For you to have your way with them, because I know at the end of all of this, there will be glory, okay? At the end of all of this, there will be glory. I will be glorified in this marriage. I am choosing them because I trust them to handle this assignment well. I am choosing them because I know that they will be able to carry out this assignment well. And so usually when wives have been given this type of an assignment, God, one, trusts you and know that you are going to handle it well. Two, God is looking to perfect you in some areas, to grow you up in some areas, to mature you. There are some things that he wants to bring and pull through you. There are some things that he wants to show you. There are some things that he wants to help you with on this journey. It's some things that he want to use, but those things need to be perfected. Those things need to be equipped so they can do the certain task that he has called them to. Many times when wives come underneath this type of attack, they automatically assume that, okay, God is calling me to stand for my marriage. I'm standing for my marriage. Okay, I got to get my husband back. When they have no idea the whole purpose that God called you to this assignment was not just to get your husband back, was because there is something in you that he sees and he wants to use. There is a divine call on your life that he wants to get the glory for. Okay, he wants to get the glory. He wants to show you something about you on this journey. Or he wants to correct some things in you. He wants to bring forth some things in you. And so a lot of times one of my main objectives when working with wives, I try to get them to understand is, if you have been chosen for this, and I always say, and I keep saying that, this is not everybody's assignment. This is not everybody's call. A lot of times I get some wives who become very offended when I say that, maybe this is not what God called you to do. Well, doesn't God, doesn't the Bible say that God hates divorce? Doesn't God's word say, that he hates divorce? Yes, he does. He does hate divorce. But when you have been called to this type of assignment, This is not just about marriage anymore. This is not just about, oh, you and your husband in marriage. This is something so much greater than your marriage at this point. This is not just about marriage anymore. And so I always try to encourage wives, make sure that you are hearing from God yourself. Make sure that you are hearing from God specifically, and you know that this is what God has called you to do. Because let's just look at it from this point of view. When you're married to this type of person, you can turn the other cheek. You can be the bigger person. You can, love on that person. You can cover that person. You can, you can do all those things. You can do all the things that the Bible tells us to do as Christians, right? You can do all the things that the Bible tells us to do as Christians. You can humble yourself. You can do this. You can do, but when these types of things are happening to you over and over and over and over again, and you are on this like cycle where different things are happening repeatedly, and you're doing these things, and you're really trying to surrender and do what what God's asked you to do, something has to give, right? It has to be some type of like cut. It has to be like, this has to come to an end. And so it's either, okay, God, either you're going to do what you said you're going to do, or you're going to release me from this. You're going to do what you said you're going to do, or you're going to release me from this. Wives have to understand that when God calls them to this type of assignment, he's not calling them to this assignment for that wife to change the husband. The wife is there as a representation of Christ, okay? Christ is going to use that wife to be a representation of him. So Christ is, in a sense, he is building that wife up. He is helping that wife. He is showing that wife different things, but he is using her as a representation of him to get to the husband. But ultimately wise, at the end of the day, it's going to be God who transform your husband. Ultimately, it's going to be God who change your husband's heart. Ultimately, it's going to be God who changes your husband's behavior, okay? God will allow a lot of different things to take place. He will allow a lot of different things to happen, but at the end of the day, it is going to be him that actually change the heart of your husband, that change your husband's behavior, that save your husband. All right. So I always just try to just express, not to devalue anyone's emotions or their pain, what they're going through, and not to validate those things, because your emotions and your feelings, that's real. That is real. But I always tell wives, once they get past that part, once you go through that grief cycle, once you come to a place like, okay, I surrender to what this is. So now what? Then it's easier for her to have a better understanding of why she has been called to this. And my job as a coach is to help her go after what that is. What is it God wants to correct in you? What is it that God, what behavior traits need to be corrected in you? Because you're not going to be able to represent Christ. You're not going to be able to be a representation of his wife if your behavior is not changed. You're not going to be able to represent Christ if your attitude is not changed. You're not going to be able to be a good representation of Christ if your emotions is all off balance. You're not going to be a representative of his wife. So in order for you to be a representation of his wife, there are some things that God wants to change and do in you, whether that be healing you from some childhood wounds, whether that's healing you for some things that took place traumatically in your marriage, whether that's some things that you just didn't know about as a wife from the giddy up. You just didn't know about these things, whether that's teaching you some spiritual I should say biblical principles, whether that's teaching you certain things about yourself that you didn't know, whether that's helping you to see your husband the way you have never seen him before. It is something that he's doing. But if he has said, I want you to stand for this broken marriage, I want you to stand for this unhealthy marriage, I want you to stand for this, unrepentant husband of yours, he's not saying that because he wants you to do the job. He's going to do the job. He's going to do the transformation. He's going to do the restoration. He's going to do the restoring in that marriage. He's called you to this place because he said, I see something in you that I can use, and it's going to help build up the kingdom. I see something in you that I can use, and it's going to help bring and draw others to me. I see something in you that I can use, and you will be able to win souls for my sake. Okay. At the end of the day, all of our purpose here on earth is to glorify the Lord, is to worship and glorify him, is to bring him glory. That's all. If you had to find that one thing that will, how I find my purpose, well, your purpose is to glorify the Lord, is to bring him glory, but if he have a specific calling for you, if he has called you for something, he's saying, I want to use that thing that I'm going to perfect, that I'm going to equip you with, that I'm going to strengthen you with, that I'm going to build, I'm going to restore, I'm going to mold, I'm going to regenerate, I'm going to reconstruct. I'm going to use that thing because it's going to be that thing that is going to help draw others to me. I'm going to use that one thing that you may look at, or the world may look at like, oh my God, it's horrible. But I'm going to use that and turn it around that it can work out for my good. Listen, I will share y'all a little quick transparency. Of course, he had, I don't want to say issues. I don't think I had issues, but I didn't realize I had a behavior issue. I didn't realize I had a behavior issue. And my behavior issue, I think, it really came from the pain that I endured in, past relationships. I was very angry. I was a very angry person. And so sometimes when I was angry, I put my hand on people, type of thing. And there was consequences to that, and so God used that thing to reshape me, to remold me, to, show me that there is another way. Self-control, what? Who has self-control? There is no self-control. And one of the things I always try to, share it wise, you gotta practice the Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 to 23. It's certain fruits that God wants to develop on the inside of us, because he has already given us these fruits, but they need to be developed. And so a lot of times wives are not aware that I know I got some stuff going on and I need to work on, but what about him? I know I got this and that going on, but what about him? And what she had to understand is this marital restoration standing journey has nothing to do with him. As far as what about him in that sense, God is going to do what he's going to do in him, but he's going to use you. He's going to use you to be that starting place. He's going to use you to represent him. As he's using you, changing you, molding you, correcting you, shaping you, building you, as he's doing those things, you are now being a witness. You are now being a witness. You are now being a representation of him. And now that is going to draw others near. That's going to draw people towards him. Listen, wife, even including your husband. If your husband has always known you to be snappy and the neck twirling and you going off and you saying what you wanted and you putting hands on him and you doing all kinds of stuff, and then all of a sudden you're not doing that one day, he's going to wonder like, okay, what's going on? What had happened? He's going to wonder like, okay, what had happened? What's going on? Like, who is this person? I don't even know who this person is no more, So his wife is about changing the behavior of that wife, for her behavior to model and look more Christ-like. Okay, his wife is to model the characteristic and for her identity to be in a line with Christ's way. A lot of people struggle. A lot of wives struggle with their identity when their identity is found in the Lord. They're looking for their identity in so many other things, but you find your identity in the Lord. And so that is what my curriculum, Her Buoyancy Boost, is all about. It helps wives to deal with their broken pieces. It helps wives to deal with those areas that they lack in. It helps wives to, be able to acknowledge, the areas that, I ain't really good in this area. I really need to work on this. And it helps wives to make sure that she's taking care of herself. One of the reasons why I highlight self-care on this journey is because so many wives lose themselves when they're dealing with a broken husband. When they're married to a broken husband, they lose themselves because they're trying so hard to be this perfect person for him, not realizing that is not doing anything for your marriage. And more than anything, it is bringing that wife down more than anything than it is gaining, And so Her Buoyancy Boost is a curriculum that I use to help wives to regain their self-worth, to regain their value, to regain who she is in the Lord, to regain, everything that she lost during this journey, to regain her, who she is, to have a do-over, a start over, and to take her eyes off of what is going on with her husband and to focus on more of what the Lord is wanting to do with her. And the God in due time is going to bring that husband over. He's going to bring that husband over. Why? Because he has already promised that he will. He has already promised you. If God has called you to this assignment to stand, he didn't call you to this assignment to stand for you to keep on doing the same thing, going over that same mountain, having that same circle, dealing with the same things. No. If you are changing, improving, and getting better, and your husband is not, God is going to deal with that person, okay? But wives have to understand that it ain't going to be you that's going to change him. It is going to be the transformation that takes place in you that God will allow your husband to see, and then he will be able to transform your husband like he wants to transform your husband, okay? He's not going to just leave you in that. And so I always try to tell wives, what was the thing that the Lord told you? What did he promise you about your marriage? It's like you need to know that, because if you don't know what God has promised you, then you're going to be looking at this, you're going to be in this situation with a person who is connected to the world. He's cheating, he's in the home talking to other women in the home, he's disrespecting the home. You're gonna be looking at God, like what's up with this? Like, this is what I'm supposed to, and you would think that this is what you're supposed to settle for. This is how life's supposed to be. Like, this is what it's supposed to be at. But you have to remember what God promised you about your marriage. You have to also understand that the enemy's plan is to keep you in that stuck place. And I've been talking to the wives about, crossing over, coming from out of Egypt, getting to the promised land. And as long as the enemy can keep you, this man ain't gonna ever change. This man, he over there talking to another woman. This man, he doing this and he doing that. This man, he ain't attracted to you. He ain't stunning you. He already said he want a divorce. He already said that, he trying to do things just so you can divorce him. This man ain't trying to, improve or do better or anything like that. And you standing for this marriage? Really? This is what Christians do. Christians don't stand for stuff like this. Christians don't deal with stuff like this. And if you are getting fed those type of negative words and those type of negative those type of negative things from the enemy, and you and because he can use that to to bring you to a low place, listen, it would knock you off. It would knock you completely off. But if you remember, see, the Lord made a promise to me, okay? The Lord told me to stand for this marriage, okay? He told me to stand for this marriage, and if I stand for this marriage, he said that he will deliver my husband. He will set my husband free. He said that my husband will be set free. He said my husband will be made whole. He said that my husband will be restored. So because the Lord has promised me these things, guess what? I'm not going to be moved by what he's doing, because what he's doing, the enemy wants me to see these things, or what the enemy wants me to endure these things. So I'm not going to focus on those things. I'm going to take my eyes off of what he's doing. I'm going to keep on pursuing the Lord and making sure that I'm in alignment and that I'm still going in his right direction. If anything else differently that the Lord want me to know, I ain't going to focus on him talking to the other woman. I ain't going to focus on him, hanging out in the streets. I ain't going to focus on him, with his drinking and his alcohol addiction. I'm not going to focus on those things. I'm not going to focus on those things, because God gave me a promise. And since God gave me a promise, God is not going to leave me here. Come on, Egypt. God ain't going to leave you in Egypt. He's sending a deliverer to come and get you out of Egypt. So God, he's not going to leave me here in Egypt in this, because this does not represent him. Me staying in a marriage like this does not represent him. But if he told me to stay in this marriage, he told me to stay in this marriage because he has a plan to get me out. He has a plan to get us to the other side. He has a plan to restore. Okay. And so that is what wives have to understand. That's what wives have to get on this journey. God is doing something so much bigger, so much greater than what you can see with the natural eye. You have to understand this assignment is not just, I'm just out here just standing for a marriage. No, you have to have been divinely called for this type of assignment, because everybody cannot handle this. God don't trust everybody with this type of assignment. And so listen, I just thought I'd just share that with y'all. For some of my new followers who may have questions like, what your coaching is about, that's what my coaching is about. I help wives who are married to toxic husbands who deal where abandonment has taken place in the marriage, abuse, abandonment, adultery, addiction, mental and emotional abuse has taken place in their marriage, but they feel the tug from the Lord to stand, or they feel like, I feel like I'm supposed to stay in this marriage even though he's doing these things, or I feel like, I'm supposed to not leave my marriage even though he's doing these things. These are the type of wives that I coach, and that I help them to regain their self-worth, to regain, who they are, to start over, and then let them know that you do have a life outside of being in this type of marriage. Like, this is not, you're not stuck to this thing. You're not stuck to this. God is actually doing something in you and trying to get you to a place so you can represent him in a place to draw others to him, and this is not for everybody. So listen, I always try to encourage, if you feel like that is you, if you feel like that's somewhere that you are on your journey, I want to encourage you to sign up for your consultation. All right, you can sign up at www.marriagechroniclesbytanika.com. You can get a little bit more information, try to figure out exactly what are you doing. Are you supposed to be on this stand? Are you doing this stand the correct way? Get some clarity, get some understanding. Listen, I am doing a Teach Me How to Be His Wife VIP day in the month of February, and I want you to sign up for that. It's going to teach wives how to be his wife, and I'm going strictly off of the marital covenant, helping wives to understand the marital covenant, helping wives understand marriage, divorce, remarriage, helping wives to understand her role and the part that she played in in her marriage, helping wives to see where she is, in her marriage. This is for singles and married ladies, okay? For singles and married ladies. But that's not until February, and I'll talk more about that later on in the year. But if you are standing now, and you want to know how to do this stand, am I doing this right? Can I get more clarity? What I'm supposed to be doing? I want to encourage you, wife. I want to encourage you to sign up today for your consultation, all right? www.marriagechroniclesbytanika.com. All right? Listen, I'll talk to y'all soon, all right? Blessings.